Hello everyone, back tuning in to today's second video. So we've already released JMA Friday. You can find that video here on the homepage. Just scroll down the page a little bit and it's above the pollen count. It's extending out over the next month and there's going to be a lot of anticyclonic weather coming up over the next month. I think the position of high pressure will change a bit, so we'll bring more of an Atlantic influence into the north and west, but for the south particular, going to be a lot of pretty dry and warm weather coming up over the next month, and that takes us into the start of July, so have a look at that and see what you think. This video will just have a very quick look at the weather for the next week to 10 days, so this takes us beyond the middle part of June. Yesterday it looked like we're going to perhaps have quite an unsettled spell through the middle phase of the month as the Westerlies come back. There have been changes on that, and I'll bring you up to date right now. So you're going to start off with the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles for the next couple of weeks. The red line here is a 30-year upper air temperature average. Look at London today, so it's 30-year upper air temperature average for London. The next few days going to be substantially warmer than average, taking us into the start of next week. Lots of dry weather coming up as well. There will be scattered thundery showers and thunderstorms over the weekend, primarily in the north and west. Not going to be too many down in the southeast. Could be some heavy rain or thundery rain on Monday, so sort of late Monday into the start of Tuesday. But other than that, actually next week is now looking generally quite dry, taking us into the second half of the month. And look what's happened with the temperatures. So yesterday the ensembles were generally dipping down to around the 30-year average and staying there. Now we do see a slight reduction in the temperature through the middle part of next week, but overall the temperature actually staying warmer than average, above the red line, at least for the southeast of the country, right way through into the second half of the month. So it looks like the weather is probably going to be staying warm for the middle part of June, and possibly staying or becoming very warm as we go into the second half of the month. If that is right, this is going to be another substantially warmer than average month, and it is a change on what the models were showing yesterday, when they were generally a little bit cooler and a little bit more unsettled for this middle part of June. Temperature anomalies are looking like that for the weekend, taking us from the 8th to the 16th of June. We're generally coming out warmer than average again, as we are through most parts of Europe, in a very, very long run now of warmer than average weather. Notice across Russia, still generally colder than average there. That's where the jet stream's dipping. Obviously, the jet stream is going something like that. So Russia is within the dip in the jet stream, in the trough. And so that's where the cool air is digging in and unsettled as well. Spain and Portugal, I'm afraid, is rough for a holiday down there. It remains pretty cool, certainly much cooler than you would expect for this time of the year. But those areas aside, and North Africa too, also coming out a bit cooler than average, but those areas aside, most parts of Europe and the British Isles included in this, coming out warmer than average as we continue to see high pressure ridging in across much of Central and Northern Europe. Precipitation anomalies are looking like that, so actually I'm just going to flip the chart over. So let's just move that to precipitation. That's the temperature anomaly again. That's precipitation anomaly, and it looks like that. So much of Northern Europe is coming out drier than average, significantly so for much of Scandinavia, much of the UK, northern parts of Germany, Poland, coming out drier than average in those areas. Down to the south of Europe, it remains quite a wet scene through France, through Spain, Portugal, into Italy. The Mediterranean looks like it's drying out a bit. But generally it's wetter in the south, drier in the north, and that situation continues for the weekend, the 8th to the 16th of June. This is how the GFS is looking for Monday. So this is a low pressure that might be threatening thundery rain to the south. It's across the northern parts of France on Monday. We are still essentially under this ridge of high pressures extending into central parts of Europe as well. Let's go through and see what happens. So this is the middle of next week, where we still have this ridge from the Azores high across the UK. That's keeping us fairly dry and quite warm into the middle of next week. Then the second half of next week, we start to try and bring in the Westerlies. This is an attempt to see a return of the westerlies with low pressure in the Atlantic out to the north and west, with jet stream is trying to come back as well. But we still have ridging across the south and into Europe. That's where the jet stream is on Thursday. So the jet stream is generally coming through the Atlantic like that, wants to push into the UK, but then is being pushed up to there by the ridge that's sitting over central parts of Europe. Now into the end of next week, what happens is that these areas of low pressure just continue to be grazing up to the northwest of the country. So instead of pushing through the country like we've seen on the models yesterday, the jet stream and their attendant areas of low pressure are just moving in that sort of direction, which leaves the ridge actually strengthening across central parts of Europe, and that's starting to drag up some really quite warm air from the south. So we never get a return of westerlies now for southern parts of the country. There's the jet stream next weekend, again still to the north and west Brazil, not pushing through, not bringing those areas of low pressure into the UK, such as the models were showing yesterday. Now, as we get to day 10, it all goes rather slack again, so that could well be triggering off more heavy showers and thunderstorms down in the south. But essentially, we still have that jet stream running to the north and to the west of the country up here, not pushing the jet stream and the westerlies through. Certainly not to England and Wales. We do get more influence of the jet stream for Scotland. Now, just a little bit beyond day 10, actually, we do start to push the westerly flow through. Only temporary, though. Only lasts a very brief day or two, and then quite quickly we find that we're going back towards high pressure conditions again. That's how we finish this particular GFS run on Sunday, the 24th of June, and we're finishing it with high pressure back to the north and northeast again, low pressure down there, and that looks pretty warm and potentially very thundery as we end that GFS run. Won't worry about that too much, but it is the idea that the westerlies are now struggling to get through next week. This is how the ECWF is looking. So we start next week with a threat of some thundery rain for the south. Then we build this little ridge across the country through the middle of next week, bringing a good deal of dry and warm weather. This is the attempt to return to the westerly flow on Thursday. It starts to bring cloud and rain into the northwest. But for the south and the east, still under that little ridge of high pressure. As we go into the extended range with the ECWF, look what happens. The Azores High begins to strengthen to our south again. That's how we finish up on day 10. The westerlies never really get through to the south, so the south remains mostly dry throughout next week, and then up to day 10, and increasingly warm by the time we get to day 10 as well, as this Azores High is strengthening. A little bit more unsettled for Scotland and Northern Ireland from that westerly flow. But this is a definite downgrade on the return of westerlies that we've been talking about over the last couple of days. Finally, the GM looking like that. So, again, plenty of rain is threatening the south early next week. That gets out of the way by the middle of next week. Then we try to re-establish the westerly flow through Thursday and Friday next week. It does turn the north more unsettled. Might be some showery rain getting down to the south at the end of next week. But then look again, the Azores High begins to re-strengthen around the Bay of Biscay as we go into the extended range, and we get up to day 10. And that is actually beginning to pull in a bit of a heat wave. We start to find this high pressure drifting over towards Germany. The low pressure with the jet stream is up there, way to our north and to our west. We've got a heat low beginning to move out of Spain and Portugal, and heading up in towards the Bay of Biscay, and we're pulling up really quite hot by this point, southerly to southeasterly winds. There's the upper air temperatures. They're looking hot down in the south. That could well be lifting temperatures up to 30 degrees Celsius, I would have thought, the southern parts of the country. It is for GEM, so that's the most unreliable of the big three. The other two models aren't showing a heat wave yet, but with the Azores High potentially strengthening in around 10 days' time don't rule out the chance that we might start to bring in some quite hot air from the south. The main point of this update, though, is that the return of Westerlies has been downgraded. So it looks like we will get a little bit of a westerly flow coming back to the north and the west later next week. But for the south and the east, those Westerlies never really push through. And even if we do start to get some showery rain getting down from the south for a day or two late next week, probably beyond that, we are seeing signs now of strengthening the Azores high. And if we do that, then we will be at an increasing chance, potentially, of some quite hot weather coming up in the second half of June. Of course, that would take us into, or will ensure that we have a very, very much warmer than average June indeed, because we're already running significantly warmer than average. And if we start to get hot weather going in the second half of the month, then we would be looking at a really, really warm June. So, return of westerlies downgraded, but there will still be some westerly winds for the north and the west, and those are most likely later next week, bringing some showery rain through. And we'll be covering that, of course, in the weekend forecast tomorrow, so come back for that. Then, also this weekend, we're going to have Solar Sunday. It's been a while since we've done Solar Sunday back in February, so we've got a new Solar Sunday coming up for you this weekend as well. It's going to be quite an interesting weekend. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.